Likutei Torah, Parshas Balak, page 146, second column, in the middle of the page. The Rabbi is in the middle of explaining that there's three levels of Teshuva. The first level is Sur Merah, because then you have all the evil brought upon you. The second level is Asay Teiv, because if you don't bring Elokus into the world, then there's only a symptom, there's no revelation. And that's what he's in the middle of now, of the Asay Teiv one. So he says, and the person who's higher level, the blemishes there are more noticeable. Because like we said, the cleaner the garment, the smaller stains are very noticeable. So he says, the middle of the second column. The same thing in the Shvir Sakel that happened in Tehu. The things which are even higher in Tehu, so when the Kalim broke, so to speak, and the Lukus came down, therefore, therefore, like we learned, how is it possible that a person is sustained from inanimate plant animal, and plant sustains animals, and inanimate water sustains plant? L'cheira is being sustained from something lower. So he says, Tzemeach gives life to animals, Bal Chai Medaber, and Bal Chai gives life to people. Why is it like that? Because in the source they're even higher. Therefore, when they fell much lower. A pgam of a person who's on a higher spiritual level, like Mishu Talmid Chacham, Masha Perpeg and Basei Teik, even not doing what you should be doing. Again, you're not sinning a negative commandment, you're just lazy, so to speak, that you're not doing what you should be doing. Godol Aveinu Yosef is even worse, Mina Avin Mamish Ha'aretz, which is worse than a sin of an Ha'aretz. Even though it's only passive, you're not learning, you're not davening, whatever. But that's worse than the sin of an Ha'aretz. V'chein, it says in the Gemara, that he takes meat, whatever. You just said, if I take meat on credit, when the butcher doesn't give credit, it's a Chilul Hashem. Therefore, he's saying, the first Teshuva is Sur Merah, which is a Teshuva, but he said Asay Teiv is even a higher level of Teshuva. Why? Because Asay Teiv, based on your level, is even though it's passive sinning, but you're not bringing Kedusha into the world, so the symptom is heavy, and concealment is heavy. So therefore, and he says, the Gemara says, the Teshuva for a positive mitzvah is easier than the Teshuva of a negative mitzvah. But ain't still than Mashamed as what the Gemara says in Yuma. Ovid Adam mitzvah sessiv ishav. If a person transgresses a positive mitzvah and doesn't do it, and he does Teshuva, as soon as you regret it, you're forgiven. By Leisasa, the Gemara says, Teshuva Teila, it's not Teshuva is not enough, you need Yom Kippur. The names of L'cheira, mitzvah saseh ain't tzarech Teshuva kol kach ve'al Leisasa, which means L'cheira that the Teshuva for an Esa is easier than a Leisasa, and here we're saying an Esa is greater than Leisasa. He says, the Kvan is bars, every guy said Teshuva. He says, the Masha calls of Razal. What the Chazal say, Leizaz Mishamat Shemeichum. They don't move until you right away you get forgiven. That's Meichum Einish. The Einish is forgiven. The art is lacking, therefore, therefore you can't learn any leniencies. In other words, he says like this. This is basically what he's saying in the Gersa Teshuva. It's very interesting the way these different things say different things. The Gemara says, we learn from a pasuk, a positive mitzvah pushes off a negative mitzvah, which means a positive mitzvah is more powerful than a negative mitzvah. Yet Teshuva for a positive mitzvah is easier. You do Teshuva, you're forgiven. You need Teshuva and Yom Kippur. Okay? So what is it? So he says, the Rabbi explains, and he's bringing it down from the Gesed Teshuva, this that the Gemara says you're forgiven the sin, the punishment. Why? Because it's passive rebellion versus active rebellion. Lo yisasa means Hashem says don't do it and you're doing it. You're doing an action of rebellion. Not keeping a positive, you don't put on tefillin, you're not actively rebelling, you're just not doing something you're supposed to be doing. But nevertheless, by a lo yisasa, when you do tshuva, you're completely forgiven. All the impurity comes off, you're forgiven completely. By a mitzvah saseh, if I don't put on tefillin Monday, and I do tshuva that from now on I'm going to put on tefillin, nevertheless the Monday's tefillin, the art of Monday's tefillin never will be. That's the tshuva that the Rabbi speaks about in Tanya. In other places in the Chassidus it says that there is a level of tshuva that touches so deep that the lack of positive could become a positive. But whatever. But here the Rebbe is explaining, so therefore the blemish, so to speak, it's a passive blemish, which makes it not as severe as an active blemish, but nevertheless the blemish is worse.
What do you mean by
what?
Positive mitzvah takes away if you do a positive mitzvah, it's stronger than a negative.
If you don't do a positive mitzvah, the blemish upstairs is greater.
No, you said something before. You said something before that a positive mitzvah, a positive mitzvah is stronger than a negative.
Because a positive mitzvah pushes away a negative mitzvah.
What does that mean?
What does that mean?
No, give me an example of that.
The classic case the Gemara says is there's a din in the Torah, you're not allowed to cut off leprosy. Right. So what happens if a kid needs or an adult needs a bris, and there's leprosy on the area that you're cutting off? Right. So the question is, which one do you do? So the din is esa derech lo yisasa, because you can't do both. Right. In other words, if you keep the esa, you can only keep the esa by negating the negative commandment. So then the din is esa derech lo yisasa. The Quran is bar lezabi gersa tshuva. No, it says michain ein lo misham shum kula mitzvah sase. Avol chadei sheyasa tshuva. But in order to do a level of tshuva, sheyismal agam ha'or shechoser, to get the or that you're missing, to get that, al zeh tzarech lasis tshuva atzuma. You have to do a very powerful level of tshuva. Mimamakim korasicha, that then it's such a deep level of tshuva, what you're basically doing is you're tapping into a level which is above time and place and time and place together, and therefore what you didn't do is done. Because over there, there's no didn't do yet, because there's no bad.
Does it turn into Zechuyas though?
He's not turning in, it's not negative commandment, it's talking about positive mitzvah.
Is this the third level of Teshuva?
Huh?
Is this the third level of Teshuva?
No, this is the second level of Teshuva. Teshuva Gimel is Gimel.
How is this the second? The second one is just doing good. Now this is like even if you didn't.
No, he's talking Sur Meirah, the first level of Teshuva is desecrating negative commandments. The second level of Teshuva Seitev is doing Teshuva for the positive mitzvahs we didn't do. And the fact that you blemished, and the higher the person is, the worse the blemish is. And because he could have brought Kedusha into the world, and he didn't bring Kedusha into the world. So he said, not only that, when you do Teshuva, you don't bring the Or. Right? So therefore, in order, the Teshuva, second level of Teshuva is much greater, because you have to do a greater level of Teshuva to make the undone, done. And that's like Chassidus explains, we learned many times, the famous Rabbi Yosef ben Dodayik story.
Right.
Yeah? So it says that he was a Rasha. I mean, the guy who didn't do too many mitzvahs. So it says, Yesh keila lama b'sha'achas. Right? The voice came out from heaven, says, Rabbi Yosef ben Dodayik, mizumin olam haba. He's fit to olam haba. So Chassidus has the question, what do you mean? How can he go to olam haba? He didn't do positive mitzvahs. There was no, okay, all the sins were cleansed off.
Right.
Cleansed. Yeah? It's like they give a mashal, a chicken is laying in the sand, and the dust, he's dirty, full of kernels of sand.
He's a flea.
So if you want to take her to clean it, you take one at a time, it takes another long. The chicken wakes up and gives a push the wings, yeah, and then it's all cleaned. Okay. But, so, the question, how did Rabbi Elazar then to die, you go to Olam Haba, if he didn't have any positive mitzvahs? So Chassidus explains that level of truth, that by the way, the Alter Rebbe does not talk about in Tanya, because the Alter Rebbe is talking about Sefer Shabbat in him, but here the Alter Rebbe is mentioning it, all over Chassidus it's mentioned it, that there's a level of tshuva that Rabbi Elazar ben Dodaya did. He tapped into such a level of tshuva that made the undone done. And that's a much higher level of tshuva.
Did it turn into zchiyot? Did it turn into zchiyot?
What do you mean it turned into
No,
zchuyas?
I'm saying what he did, the tshuva.
It created the zchuyas. What?
What would be the case if he had done a lot of transgression of lotas
And?
if he did a lot of transgression?
So you do tshuva, you're forgiven.
It would be the same as the positive or negative?
No, the
I'm asking, it was like he didn't do the positive. What about if he had transgressed?
He did transgress a lot of negative.
As well.
Yeah.
Oh, but you said it was-
So his level of tshuva did both simultaneously.
Oh, I thought it was only.
Who was this guy who put his head in the dam?
That's Rabbi Elazar ben Dodaya. That's that guy.
You got it.
Tshuva zoyina bakosha betfila. This level of tshuva is the bakosha of tefillah, and we say shabakosha shal tshuva shal heder va'asei teiv. What is the tshuva for not keeping positive mitzvahs? Shlei liskash shlei davik b'shem havaya. Not to cling and to be connected to Shem Havaya, which is Seviv Kol Almin, and the level of Makiv, that's even the level higher than Elokeinu, which is Mamala Kol Almin. Okay? So he said, like he said before, Sur Meirah is basically not a Mamala Kol Almin, because you're blemishing it. Here is in the level of Seviv Kol Almin. Behind, okay, mitzvahs es and mitzvahs lo yisaseh, Tuluyin b'shem Havaya, connected to the name of Yudke Vavke. Alkein ham shechanim shechayidei mitzvahs. Normally he says, what happens when you keep a positive mitzvah? You're bringing down Seviv into Mamala. L'shem yichud kudshe brichu u'shchintei. Right? So now, v'zau'in lidove b'shem Havaya mamish. Like it says in the Gerster Tshuva Perek Ches. Because the Spirit came over him and he did tshuva, he became pure. As I told nafsh. Then the nefesh is lo shabbat havaya baruch hu mamish, lalis ma'ila ma'ila mikoda, which is the level of tshuva ilah. Tshuva ilah, like he says, is not for avedus. Tshuva ilah is a level to become much, much closer to Hashem than you were before you sinned. So there's tshuva tata is to get rid of the sin. Then you have tshuva ilah, that you didn't sin anymore, you're done. But there's a level, because Hashem is so infinite, you want to return to a level of Hashem that you couldn't do when you were dirty, when you were impure, full of sins. And then it becomes beyichud nifla. Kamesha yisem yuchad is by betachsa yichud. Like it was before Hashem even blew. In other words, there's a level of Hashem blowing the neshama into the body. So then when you transgress negative commandments, your action creates the mechitza that doesn't allow the neshama's Hashem blowing to go into the person. Therefore, the cardinal that you died young. But then he says, but now the level of tshuva mitzvah saseh is a level of tshuva that you connect yourself to Hashem, not that He's blowing and you're connected to the blow. Here you're connected to the level of Hashem before He blew, when the blowing was still within Him. So, Kolzman, you're blocking the blow, so you're not even connected to the blowing. So then, but after you do tshuva, then the mitzvah sasei tshuva is that you connect yourself to a level of elokus that the undone gets done, meaning you're connecting a level of Elokus before he even blew. The way the air is one with you before you even blew it. This is all the second level of Teshuva. It's not the third level of Teshuva yet. And he says, which is Klula B'Shem Havaya Mamish. Okay, skip the parentheses. Where does it end? Yeah, okay. So he says now in Gimel, Tshuva Shlishis, what is the third level of Tshuva? Now, L'chayr is a lofty level of Tshuva. What can you have greater than this? So he says, Tshuva Shlishis, Afal Pisha Surmei Rabatachas. Even though the person turned away completely from evil. Begam Asei Tev Batachas, and he also did good Tshuva of Asei Tev. Azai, Tshuva Gedele Yesed, what it says, Shuva Eilayva Shuva Aleichem. Hashem says, return to me, and I will return to you. He explains what does this mean. Like it said, in the concept of Kol Yamav B'Tshuva, the Gemara says, a person should be all his life B'Tshuva. Now what does that mean? He said, similar, the Gemara says in Brachos, Rabbi Yechanan says, Halavai sheyispalel adam kol hayom kulay. Halavai, a person should daven a whole day. It doesn't mean, say Haidu, 5 minutes later say Lashem, and 10 minutes later say Kiru. What it means, it should be on a level of tefillah, the level of connection with Hashem, which tefillah means connection, the whole day. He said, when the Gemara says, Kol Yama B'Tshuva, what does it mean? He says, Ein Ratzalem al Averis Chas V'Sholim. You can't mean on Averis, K'ma Kol Yamav. What do you mean all your days, every minute you're sinning? Ella, what it means is Tshuva Yal Richuk. The Tshuva is returning to Hashem from the being distant from Hashem. Meaning, Ki Av Shu Asei Tev Mekayim Mitzvahs, even though he does mitzvahs and he no negative, only positive, Im Kol Zeh, Yochol Yesadayim B'chinas Yesh V'Davar. He could be still a lack of bittul. Could be a mamash yesh. V'gam afilu avadayim. Even his love to Hashem, it's all about me. Yesh mi sha'ayiv. So it's the person who loves. In other words, you could be a perfect Jew, Surmeira completely, I'll say Dev completely, but they're still lacking the level of bittul. The Ikarat Tshuva, what is the level of Tshuva? K'mesher Kosev, Toshuva Lakim, Ainu, Sheyir Tzaloshuv Lemekere V'Shoshe. He wants to go back to the source of where neshamas come from in the level of all of the machshava, the highest level of machshava, meaning sheyirtza lichol v'dovik ba'atzma saying to Baruch Hu, which is higher than memala and seviv. In other words, Surmei I explained before is the tshuva of memala. Aseitev is the tshuva of seviv, that you can make the undone done. Then he comes to the level, the third level, of what's called Kula Kamei Kaloi Choshev, the only thing that exists in the world is Hashem. That's the level of higher than Sevivim and Mamala. Like we say in davening, I'm Misnase Mimeis Elam. The level of Alukus, which is higher than the Yemeis Elam, means the Sfiras that Hashem created the world with. So it's higher than the Sfiras.
We need a return ticket for that.
Ad yaver amcha havaya. Ad yaver amcha havaya means to go, like we learned in the other Maimon, lifnei Hashem. Havaya seviv, Elokim is mamala, right? That whole thing we learned before. Right. This is lifnei havaya, a level higher than worlds. Kishem havaya is called chokhmah, that's called seviv. What happened by Kriyas Yamsuf? There was a gilui maila b'china seviv. It was an infinitely greater level, a gilui, even than seviv kol almin. Because Yam became Yabosha. Yeah. U'v'neisa hocho be'Yabosha b'teicha Yam. Which means it wasn't Yam became Yabosha, and that was it. It was a combination of Yam and Yabosha together. It was a combination of Alma Diskasya Seviv, Yabasha is Gilui Mamala Kol Almin. So what happened, Yam became Yabasha means Yam joined with Yabasha. That means both of them, Gilui and Helam, became one. There was such a level of Gilui Elokus, which is higher than Gilui, the level of Elokus which is revealed, and higher than the level of Elokus which is concealed.
So that's the third level of Tshuva?
Yes. V'al masha kos b'zeyan gam pasig hayesh Hashem b'kirbeinu im ayin. It says, is yesh Hashem b'kirbeinu im ayin. Simply means we need to know, is God within us or not? But Chassidus explains ayin refers to yesh mi ayin, the level of atik shalamayla mishem avaya, which is even higher than your tivavka. Like we learned, lifnei avaya. So if you remember, not the Tetzava, we're learning that there's a Gilui of Etzem, of the Neshama, but that is also limited, that it's essence and not revelation. Right? Then there's a level of Etzem and Neshama that comes from the essence of Hashem, which is higher than the concept of Etzem and Gilui. It's higher than, it's not even essence, because essence is limited, that it's essence and not revelation. Here is a level of Gilui, and what we learned out of Tzava was, there's a level of Gilui which essence and Gilui are the same. The way it's really in the essence of Hashem, the essence of Hashem, that there's no difference between essence and Gilui. He says also, that's the level of im yesh Hashem b'kirbeinu ma'ayin. What is ayin? Sherish and shamitz yisrael k'may merazal da ma'ayin basa. We say in Pirkei Avos, right? Reflect on the three things will never come to sin. Da ma'ayin basa. Yeah, it simply means know where you're coming from. Where you're coming from, tipa srucha, putrid drop. You're basically garbage, and you end up to be garbage in the ground. Your whole life, you're basically garbage, and that's what it says in Pirkei Avos. But Chassidus explains, me'ayin basa doesn't mean where you come from. Me'ayin basa, you're coming from the level of ayin, the source of the neshama. Like it says, ein mazel Yisrael, simply means Jews don't have mazel; they're above mazel. But Chassidus explains, no. Don't read it, Ein Mazel Yisrael. Ayin, Mazel Yisrael. The Yidden come from the level of Ayin, which is infinitely greater. Like it says, Ein Mazel Yisrael. V'nelzim min ha-Levanin, they're flowing from Levanin, which is Levanin color, because Chassidus explains, Levanin is two words, Lev, Nun. Levanin is Lev, Nun.
That's what Levanin comes from.
Lev Nun, Lev, it says in Psukim that Lamed Beis Mesivas Chochma and Chamishim Shari Bina. Okay, so it says there's 32 paths of, it's a pasuk, 32 paths of Chochma and 50 Shari Bina. So Levanin is Lev, which is Chochma, Nun is Bina. It's a level of Chochma and Bina combined, even though seemingly they're opposites. Chochma is a lack of understanding, and this is understanding. It comes from, and he said, "V'zeu yin tshuva tzuma, sheyirtz Allah shavichol ba'atzma serin tzal baruch hu mamish." That's another. That's even greater than the second level of Asay Teiv, tapping into a level of Elokus, which is higher, that can make the undone done. This is even a higher level. He wants to tap in that into the level of Seviv. Chassidus explains another major point. Tshuva is only good in this world. You can't do tshuva and down. Once you're up there, it's too late. Okay? Like the rich guy who never gave tzedakah, the miser, came up to Gan Eden. He said, let me in. They said, sorry, you're not worthy of going in. He said, I'll write you a check. So they answered him, in this world we don't take checks, we take receipts. Show me what you gave. Don't now, you can't, no checks are not going to work. Okay? So you can't do tshuva in Olam Haba. You can only do tshuva here. So Chassidus explains why. Olam Haba is Ziv HaShechina. That's Mamala. Mamala already is what it is. Art is art, Chayshech is Chayshech, it is what it is, you can't change it. This world is Sefer Kol Almin. In Seviv, it's hot, top is top, and bottom is bottom, and bottom is top, and top is whatever it is. So over there you could do tshuva because nothing's clearly identifiable yet. But this he's saying, so that's tshuva loisase is from mamala. Tshuva basei is seviv that you can make done. This is even a level higher than mamala and seviv. This is a level of the essence of Hashem. And therefore, when in Tanya constantly, when the Alter Rebbe speaks about his beininess, he says, all over Tanya, he says the expression like this: Eichel memala kol amin, veichel seviv kol amin, v'kula kamei kol choshev. These are three levels. There's say mamala. You have to meditate in the way the Eibush to mamala kol amin, seviv kol amin, and then there's a third level. Kula kamei kol choshev. There is no mamala. There's no seviv. There's nothing. It's similar to these three levels of tshuva. The tshuva leisa says mamala. Okay, you get dirty, you get cleaned, you're fine. That's it, you're done. Then you have asay, you didn't rebel too much. It was a passive rebellion, so you get forgiven for the punishment. But the ordinary, you still didn't accomplish what you needed to accomplish. Right? So then that level of tshuva gets the undone from saving kolam. This level of tshuva, you want to return to the essence of Hashem, which is higher than Sev, higher than Mamala. Basically, im chaloi chafatzti, b'shamayim v'aretz. I don't want Shemayim, which is Seviv. I don't want Aretz, which is Mamala. I want, as Alter Rebbe said, dich alein, I want only you.
That's level of Purim again.
Purim, Yom Kippur.
But Rabbi, aren't we afraid if we go to a third, that level of tshuva,